Several friends from London and New York to spend the Thanksgiving weekend with me at my house in Atlanta. And they were all leaving on Monday night, and my flight to get here was leaving on Monday lunchtime, so that timing was a little off. And I decided to download the second series of Breaking Bad as my travel companion. Oh my god, that was such a bad mistake. I don't know if you've watched Breaking Bad, but Breaking Bad is about the production of crystal meths in Albuquerque, and truly there's two characters called Walt and Jesse, and they're not great travel companions because it's so intense and it's so manic and it's all about crystal meth, and there is absolutely no way that you can get any sleep after consuming 6 or 7 different episodes of Breaking Bad. And so I haven't had much sleep. You've been locked away in this dark room all day, so I'm going to try and make this as energetic and as possible. I'll need my energy with me on stage, and I'm hoping that I can take some of your energy from the audience. Now, what I'm going to talk about is probably the most underutilized resource on the planet, and that is creativity. We are all so much more creative than we allow ourselves to be. And our brands can be so much more creative than we allow them to be. And consumers, or users, or shoppers, or fans are also so much more creative than we think them to be. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how the Coca-Cola Company approaches creativity and why we think it's a competitive advantage. And then I'm going to end narrating a film that I narrated in Cannes, but this time there'll be slightly more space around it, given that I've got more time to really introduce it than the time that I had in Cannes. But really what that does is it sets out our evolving creative agenda. And really what I'm heartened by is it really interprets a lot of the themes that you've already heard today. So it talks about, a distribution of creativity. It talks about the distribution of technology. It talks about the need to engage in conversation. It talks about the need to be very flexible with production so that you can respond to the conversation in a very creative way. So if you'll indulge me for the next, say, 40 minutes, and I'm around, I've chosen to stay here tomorrow and hang out with you guys tomorrow because I'm really interested in engaging in proper ongoing dialogue with the creative industries because the proper ongoing dialogue outside of the agencies that we work with, but other thought leaders and other people with challenging opinions, and the thing that really keeps the Coca-Cola Company's creative perspective fresh and relevant to our consumers all over the world. Okay, so as an additional part of the ongoing dialogue that I'd like to encourage, I'm Mildenhall at Twitter. I am increasingly active on Twitter, and what I love about Twitter is I get fresh ideas and challenges and provocations from people all over the world. So it'd be great to either have the dialogue in real time, in the real world, here over the next few days, or indeed online via Twitter. So, as I just referenced, I truly believe at the Coca-Cola Company that creativity is the crucial variable in the process of turning knowledge into value. Increasingly, we all have access to the same insights. We all have access to the same data. And the thing that differentiates truly creative organizations and creatively driven brands is how they turn that knowledge into new and distinct value. The Coca-Cola Company study different creators, different storytellers, different creative businesses, and from forever now, whenever I make a presentation about creativity, I have to. I'm just so obliged to start the presentation with this film, because when this guy created this film, he had no idea that he was going to change the world in the profound way that he did.
Here's to the crazy ones. The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Such amazing foresight and such an amazing piece of inspiration to us all. Because we can all change the world. That world doesn't need to be planet Earth. That world doesn't need to be your organisation. That world can just even be your home life or your own personal life. We all have the power to use creativity to change the world. Other creators we admire, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg is arguably the world's most enduring and prolific storyteller in film, and the Coca-Cola Company will continue to invest heavily in building stories through the medium of film around our brands. And so we've studied the way that Steven Spielberg's storytelling has evolved over time. I'm a big fan of copy, and I'm a champion of maintaining the value of copy in today's ever-visual world. There is no better copywriter or master of words than Dr. Maya Angelou. She is the kind of author that can smash your heart open with the use of just 3 words, and then she can glue it together again in the most inspirational way with the next line that she writes. Madonna is somebody that we will continue to study as a creator. The reason why she's relevant to Coca-Cola is because for the last 32 years, she has been, her brand essence hasn't changed. She stands for fierce, independent womanity. She always has, fierce, independent womanity. But what she and her team do better than any of her competitors, any of the latest queens of pop, is she reads popular culture better than anybody else. And so her expression of this fierce, independent womanity is fresh and distinct for the last 3 decades. It's exactly like brand Coca-Cola. Brand Coca-Cola is the universal icon of happiness. It's not complicated. It's a drink that makes people feel happy. And my task, and my team's task, and our agency's task, is to read popular culture and make sure that that expression of happiness is relevant to new generations of drinkers. So we don't need to strategically rethink the brand essence every other year. That brand essence is set. It's been proven for the last 12 decades. But what we need to do is read popular culture better than any of our competitors, and indeed other brands that are using happiness as their platform so that Coca-Cola's happiness remains distinctive, compelling, and fresh. And Dr. Martin Luther King is also a creator we admire because, as you guys will all know, anybody who's tried to birth a new idea, a new vision, finds so much obstacle before that idea, that vision is allowed to be birthed. And so, the use of words and speech and passion to articulate your vision and your new idea in the face of people that are saying no all the time is a key skill for anybody who works with the Coca-Cola Company, because good ideas aren't necessarily embraced. In fact, most often than not, good ideas are challenged, and you need strong visionary skills to have them succeed. And then finally, we study Google. Any brand that challenges the Coca-Cola brand as being the world's most valuable brand is something we would have to consider. But what's interesting about Google and its approach to creativity is the way that it frees up work time to ensure that creativity is something that all its employees are thinking about every single week. So, creativity is about seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody has thought. What I mean by that is, quite often for us, the Coca-Cola Company, creativity is blindingly obvious. And a little quick anecdote that I give to help people understand exactly what I mean by that is when Wiley Kennedy came to me 3 years ago to present a new campaign for Coca-Cola, they gave me a bottle of Coca-Cola, and they said, "Jonathan, what have you got in your hand?" And I said, "I've got the universal icon of happiness." And they said, "Well, what is that?" So I said, "Well, it's a bottle of happiness." And they said, "Well, take a drink out of it." And so I opened the bottle of happiness. And before I put it to my lips, they said, "What have you just done?" I said, "I just opened a bottle of happiness." "So how would you shorten that?" So I said, "Well, I've just opened happiness." And then they turned around the board, and sure enough, there was the end line, the new global end line for Coca-Cola, open happiness. It was so simple, I couldn't believe that nobody had thought of it before. But the brilliance of Wiley Kennedy meant that they were the first to connect those two things, open happiness. Sometimes the blinding obvious can be very expensive. I mean, that meeting cost me about $1 million, but it is what it is. Sometimes you need other people to see your obvious states. The Coca-Cola Company is on a march for creativity. About 11 years ago, the chief exec declared the Coca-Cola Company creatively bankrupt. We hadn't been in Bloomberg's Business Week's league of the most creative and commercially successful companies for about 7 years. I'm very, very pleased to say that 3 years ago we were in at number 27, and then we moved up to 24, and now we're at number 19, and we're the only FMCG company that's actually in this league. You can imagine that it's full of technology companies, car companies, etc. That's really good, because if you ever need any defense for the power of creativity and how creativity can have commercial success, then I recommend you go to Bloomberg, because what they do is they correlate creative momentum and potential future shareholder value. So we're very, very pleased that we're now seen by such a respected business publication as a huge driver of creativity and therefore commercial success. Creativity creates reconsideration. This is so important for us, because I can't change this liquid. Nobody can change this liquid. In fact, my forefathers tried to change the liquid about 15 years ago, about 20 years ago, and it was the biggest marketing disaster known to humankind. So we will never change this liquid again. So we're not like Nike, we're not like Apple. We can't use product innovation to make people feel good about the brand. You've got to use communication. And so let me just play this out. So Coca-Cola, thank you. Thank you very much. But just Coca-Cola there, just having a provocative conversation with people who care to spend time with that message, just to get them to rethink and reconsider the world around them. Creativity sparks brand love. Wherever I go, I always wear a Coca-Cola t-shirt. And I say to my agencies, all around the world on all brands. Our task is to make people love our brands so much that people want to wear the t-shirt. People want to be part of the Coca-Cola brand lexicon, if you like. And there is no better example of quite how much love a brand can create than this next film. I will love you till the end. I'll be my woman, my honey, when you call me out to well. Cause you're our best friend, the one who means something in this world. Argentina with Ogilvy, and forever grateful for that beautiful, beautiful piece of film. Another way of just creating reconsideration, trying to generate brand love, is again just reimagining the obvious or the everyday. So about 2 years ago, I was having an argument with the SVP of the business. He's like my client, if you like. He runs the business of Coca-Cola and I run the creative of Coke. And he said to me, Jonathan, I want out-of-home ads where people are just drinking Coke. And I'm like, people don't need to be told how to drink a Coke. I don't want to do drinking shots of people drinking Coke. And he just turned around to me and he said, well, you think you're creative, reinvent the drinking shot. Oh my God, it was brilliant, because he just got me to reconsider a traditional approach. And it's straight away, there and then, I was just like, what would Apple or Benetton do if they had Coca-Cola? And I just thought, actually, it'd be a glorious, intimate celebration of drinking Coke with people from all over the world. And so these are just 4 out-of-home shoots, but we did like 25, and we've repeated this same process with an advertising agency, actually, direct vision photographer, but just to get people to reimagine that experience of something that they're very familiar with. Creativity looks for new possibilities, obviously. Coke Zero is the invention of this mad scientist who still works at Coke, who was absolutely steadfast committed to trying to find a formula that tasted like real Coke without the sugar. Everybody said that he was mad. Every year he fought for some R&D budget. Everybody just kind of like indulged him. And then 6 years ago, he cracked the formula, and now Coke Zero is available all over the world as a multi-billion-dollar brand. Creativity creates new capabilities. So 5 years ago, the Coca-Cola Company was not held up in great esteem in terms of its recycling practices. There was lots of plastic bottles going into the environment, and we weren't doing enough about taking them back. Now, because we've invested heavily in the creative capabilities of recycling, this t-shirt is made from 3 recycled bottles of Coca-La. We've done fantastic partnerships with Emeco design chairs, and now you can buy a recycled Coca-Cola chair that's made up of 111 different recycled bottles of Coca-Cola. And now we're held up as one of the poster childs for real creative advancements in recycling. In just 5 years, that's fantastic advancement. And this is a wonderful out-of-home poster from our team in Korea, which is actually made by materials that actually, as the poster lives in the air, it actually cleans the air around it. So recycling practices and environmental practices being redesigned in a very, very compelling way. And creativity can be harnessed, harnessed into new pieces of technology, harnessed into new types of conversation. And creativity travels, and this is really important for the Coca-Cola Company. When I joined the Coca-Cola Company 5 years ago, I couldn't even name 50 countries. Now, if my work doesn't travel to at least 50 countries, then I'm deemed to have failed. But what's interesting about our freedoms within frameworks is how your creativity travels when you're managing global brands is really, really unpredictable. And I'd just like to share two Fanta films. The first was the global version, and then my dear, and I do love this country so much, but my dear partners in Brazil thought that they'd put a local Brazilian spin on it. Global version. There is true reason why Brazil is one of the happiest places in the world, because they have that kind of creativity. And creativity obviously resets the bar, which is why I love my job so much, because what was sensational 2 years ago was ordinary last year and is downright boring next year. And so we've constantly got to reset the bar. And that's a challenge, because a company like the Coca-Cola Company, we want to codify everything. If something's a success, then let's codify it and let's replicate it. But of course, if we do that, then our consumers are going to get hold of our brands. In fact, we've had periods of history where we've done just that and consumers got a little bit tired of our brands. So, resetting the bar and constant innovation and constantly disrupting your own rule book is essential, in our opinion, for the lifeblood of your brands. And creativity demands better. It demands better relationships, better people, better partnerships, better thinking, better execution. So when you're committed to creativity, you also have to be committed to the absolute best and try and get rid of anything that's getting in the way of you doing better. And creativity is behind every leap made in science, manufacturing and marketing. And it's really important that I put this out there, because creativity is not just the remit of a few people in an ad agency or a few people in a marketing organisation. Creativity, as I said in the opening, is the remit of us all. And here I've just got 3 examples of where we've used creativity to develop significant global businesses, but it's not necessarily the advertising agency that created it. So the design company created brilliant packaging with Simply and Minute Maid Kids, where we just turned regular orange cartons into toys that kids wanted to play with and collect and share and swap during their lunch hour at school. The Simply innovation was again the packaging people who decided, why should we put orange juice in a carton? Why don't we put it in a carafe and make the mom or the dad, when they're taking the orange out of the fridge, feel that it's actually a more special thing to do than just a carton. And finally, the Chinese drink there, that's a drink called pulpy. Our scientists were able to make a formula of where you get pulpy bits of orange right the way through to the last sip. And again, that's a $1 billion brand. So creativity is clearly an essential advancement for every aspect of business. And our mission is a very simple mission. Coca-Cola Company, we're in the business of refreshing the world. We're in the business of inspiring moments, this little moment of optimism and happiness. And we're in the business of creating value and making a difference wherever we go. And clearly, without creativity, we wouldn't be able to refresh, inspire, or indeed create value. So there's some high-order principles of how we go about applying creativity all around the world for the benefit of our shareholders, for the benefit of our brands, for the benefit of our consumers. Now I'd like to just narrate this film for the next 30 minutes, which is just about our evolved approach. So this is new thinking. Now it is chock-a-block because it's A to Z. It's about how we go about building strategies, how we develop creative ideas, how we manage execution, and the challenge to the research industry, how we need the research industry to get up to speed with what's really going on in the world today, because current testing of creative work is so archaic that the research industry really needs to open up and innovate and help brand owners like the Coca-Cola Company and advertising agencies like you develop proper, quantified conversation metrics that can really, really help us learn how to expand the potential of our ideas. So if you could play that film for me. Right, the floor monitor is working, I'll be a little bit better now. So chapter 3, the evolution of storytelling. So we need to focus on the evolution of storytelling. For us, that means we're going to move from one-way storytelling to dynamic storytelling. So what is the definition of dynamic storytelling? Well, it's the development of incremental elements of a brand idea that get dispersed systematically across multiple channels of conversation for the purpose of creating a unified and coordinated brand experience. So the role of people who can really tell stories through data will become our new messiahs. Once we have these publications, they'll take us to a liquid and linked creative brief. Our briefs need a big, fat, fertile space at the core. We will get to this big, fat, fertile space through mining business objectives, mining different communication challenges, through collaborating with internal and external experts, but importantly, and this is huge, collaborating with consumers through every stage of the strategic and creative cycle. So we really need to build capabilities in online conversation management. We've got 3 tools at the Coca-Cola Company that we use. One is immersion safaris online, the other is community space, groups of consumers, and the other is an online research tool that we use around the system called Connect. We also need to partner with the people in Connections, because the Connections ecosystem is changing at a dramatic rate. So we must remember that the Coca-Cola Company briefs start with a big, fat, fertile space at the core. Chapter 6, developing liquid content. So we have this definition of content, and that is the creation of stories that are to be expressed through every relevant connections point. For the Coca-Cola Company, each one of our stories must have value and significance to people's lives. Why? Well, it's because they're the substance and matter of brand engagement. So as such, the Coca-Cola Company content has to be the world's most engaging content. We also have this definition of liquid, and that is the elements of content, elements of stories, if you like, that can move freely, but they don't become too separate. Rather like gases that will become molecules, our stories must remain connected. That said, they can take on a life force of their own. So the fluidity of our intent means that no one model of content creation can satisfy all of our needs. So we need more collaborative, more adaptive, and more continuous models of content creation. And we're working with several different models right now, from working with brand fans, to working with new creative industry collaborators in the film industry or the music industry, or to working with a rockstar single agency for all of our communication needs. Now, all of these require different processes, but they all require the same principles. And the first principle is really why I'm here today. We need to inspire the world's finest creative minds to want to work on Coca-Cola business. Once we've done that, we connect those different creative communities, we continue to share learning, we'll make a commitment to ongoing innovation and new models of development, and of course, we will measure our success. So how do we nurture a liquid idea? Well, really our role is to govern its flow. We need to define some big North Star, which is some audacious impact on popular culture. Then we will bring out the creativity in all those that we work with. We will continue to encourage bravery from all of our partners. We want to be seen as a catalyst of play and good people to do business with. That means clarity of thinking at every stage of the game, but also it means embracing risk and all that that entails. Because the Coca-Cola Company really wants to be seen as a global incubator of creative ideas and creative talent. Now this is really important. World-class creative ideas need conflict in order to make them thrive. So we all need to learn how to use conflict more constructively in the world of collaboration, because conflict can truly be an enabler to outstanding creative. So chapter 7, applying the 70-20-10 investment principles for liquid content. So how do we kind of plot down an innovations map for our content? Well, on the one hand, we have low-risk content. This is where 70% of our budget will go. This is the bread and butter content. It pays the rent. It's our passport to the more innovative content. Perhaps it should take less time, say 50% of the time, because actually birthing new ideas takes more time. So this will create more time for us to focus on the 20% content. This is where we innovate on what we know works well, and it'll have deeper roots but still have broad scale. And then finally, we have 10% content. These are brand new ideas, never been done before. We're not sure if they're going to succeed, we're not sure if they're going to fail. We need to celebrate both failure and success. And we need to be confident that we can learn from both. So, if you take a look at Fanta, you could argue that the shopper, the TVCs, the out-of-home is all in the 70%. The mind spoof that you saw from Brazil is in the 20%. And the global interactive rollerball campaign is in the 10%. So 70-20-10 as a way of plotting your production budget is a real enabler to good innovation. Chapter 8. And this is a provocative chapter. Researching liquid content. Our current approach to research needs urgent address. 12 Force, Gatorade, second generation Old Spice, Nike's Right for Future, Nike's Live Strong. What do you know? All of those campaigns were birthed without pre-testing a 30-second TVC. Why? The 30-second TVC is just a sliver of the idea. Our business, in fact, marketing as a whole, demands liquid content today, and yet the research industry's approach is solidifying creativity too early on in the process. So for us, any approach that either evaporates a liquid idea or solidifies a liquid idea has to be the enemy. In a liquid and linked world, we're going to be increasingly developing ideas that are not 30-second TV-centric. So we must develop greater quantitative capabilities to allow us to build confidence in how they can be used to expand the potential of an idea. It's chapter 9, and it's only 10 chapters, applying the dollar multiplier to the iterative production process. So we need a more fluid approach to content creation. In a liquid world, we basically need a lot more stuff, but we don't have a lot more dollars. So we've developed this principle called the dollar multiplier, which gives us the confidence that our production dollars are going to work harder than any of our competitors. This also allows us to remain flexible so that we can respond to the conversation in the marketplace in a highly impactful way. In a liquid and linked world for the Coca-Cola Company, you need big tentpole productions. We will always need them. But also we need little tent-peg productions, because both are vital in holding up a brand conversation. So we will be developing capability in managing both. And you'll probably see the Coca-Cola Company spending more of its dollars directly with the production industries. But remember, we do need to iterate our production process. You can't just replicate the same old content on different screens. So chapter 10, in summary. Well, you've heard that it's a new liquid world for the Coca-Cola Company, and we have a new creative North Star, and that is to develop liquid ideas that earn our brands a disproportionate share of popular culture. And in so doing, we are confident of creativity's part in helping the company reach its Vision 2020